Today's sew-along is a beautiful skirt with peplum panels. This is Simplicity 1697. This is a relatively straightforward sewing project. We're just going to sew those panels together, put in a back zipper, and finish the hems. For this project, for the bottom hem, I'm using the blind hem stitch and the corresponding presser foot for the very first time. It created a beautiful invisible hem along the bottom, and I hope you choose that method too. The gorgeous fabric that I'm using today is from Thready Made. It's a textured cotton polyester with beautiful bright turquoise flowers. I've left a link to the fabric and to the pattern below so you can check out all the details and sew along with me. So grab all your materials and let's get started. Here are my two front pieces. Before I sew them together along the center front edges, I want to finish both of those center front edges separately. I'm going to be using my serger. Now that I've finished those center front raw edges, I'm going to place my front pieces right sides together and pin the center fronts together. Now I'll sew my center front with a 5/8 inch seam allowance and press the seam open. Here are one of my side front and side back pieces. Before I sew them together at that side seam, I'm going to finish both of the raw side edges separately. Once those edges are finished, I'll place the side front and side back right sides together and pin in place. Sew this seam with a 5/8 inch seam allowance and then press your seam open and repeat for your remaining side front and side back pieces. Take your peplum to the ironing board and press up that lower raw edge to the wrong side by 5/8 of an inch all the way across. Once that's pressed, we're going to do a rolled hem here, taking the outer raw edge and folding it to the crease that we just created with the iron, and then folding that material once again on the crease and pinning in place all the way across. Do this for the bottoms of both of your peplum pieces, and then we're going to take it to the sewing machine and edge stitch close to that inner fold all the way across for both pieces. Now we're going to attach the peplum to one of the side front and side back pieces, making sure to match the notches on both sides of your peplum with their corresponding notches on the side front and side back pieces. You also have a dot at the top of the peplum piece that will align with the top side front and side back seam. So placing the wrong side of the peplum on the right side of the side front and side back piece, pin in place along the side and top edges. Now we're going to baste the peplum to the skirt piece along the side and top edges with about a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then repeat to attach your remaining peplum piece to your remaining side front and side back piece. Now that my peplums are attached, before I move forward with this piece, I'm going to finish the raw edges on both sides, doing this for both of my peplum panels. Here is my front skirt piece once again, which I've also prepared by finishing the side edges. Now I'm going to place my peplum panels right sides together with the front skirt, matching the notches and pinning in place. Doing this on both sides of the front skirt with both peplum pieces. And then sew both of those seams with a 5/8 inch seam allowance and press your seams open. Here are both of my back pieces. I've gone ahead and prepared these pieces once again, finishing the raw edges on both sides with my serger. Now I'm going to place my back pieces right sides together. I'm going to pin these pieces together from the notch to the dot that I transferred from my pattern piece. I've marked the notch and the dot here with pins. Now I'm going to pin between the dot and the notch, and then sew from the notch to the dot with a 5/8 inch seam allowance, back stitching at both points to secure. Now we're going to attach these back pieces to the rest of the skirt. We're going to place the back piece right sides together with the peplum panel and pin in place, matching your double notches. Doing this on both sides of the back piece. Attaching the other side of that back panel to the other peplum panel. Once again, matching the double notches and pin in place. Then we can sew both sides of that back skirt in place with a 5/8 inch seam allowance and press the seams open. Apply interfacing to the wrong side of one set of front and back waistband pieces, and then place these pieces right sides together, matching the notches and pin in place. Sew the side seams with a 5/8 inch seam allowance and press the seams open. Now we're going to place the notched edge of the waistband right sides together with the top of the skirt, and matching your center fronts and your seams, pin in place all the way around. Sew all the way around from back opening to back opening with a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Once we've sewn that interfaced waistband, we're going to trim the seam all the way around by about half, and then clip into the curves all the way around. Then we can open out that waistband and press the seam allowance up toward the waistband all the way around. Place your uninterfaced waistband pieces right sides together, matching your notches, and pin in place. Sew with a 5/8 inch seam allowance and press the seams open just as we did for the other waistband piece. Now to finish the bottom edges of this waistband facing piece, the pattern instructions give you a few choices. You can simply serge or zigzag stitch those raw edges, or you could fold it to the wrong side by 1/4 inch and top stitch all the way around, or you can encase the bottom edges using double fold bias tape. I'm going to choose this option. I'm going to place this bottom raw edge of the waistband right in between that center fold of the bias tape, encasing that raw edge and pinning in place all the way across. Now I'll take it to the sewing machine and edge stitch close to that top fold of the bias tape all the way across. Now we can place the waistbands right sides together and pin in place all along the top edge. Then we can sew these two pieces all the way around with a 5/8 inch seam allowance, once again from back opening to back opening. Now we can trim this seam by about half, and then clip into the curves. Now we're going to open out this waistband facing up and away from the waistband, and press this seam allowance up toward the facing. And then we're going to understitch. We're going to sew this seam allowance to the facing about 1/8 inch away from the original stitching line, all the way around. Now that that facing is understitched, we're going to turn that waistband facing to the inside and give that seam a really good press. Then we're going to pin this facing in place right along the main waistband seam. Now that the facing is secured all along the inside with pins, I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and stitch in the ditch of the main waistband seam, placing my needle right inside that seam and stitching all the way around, making sure that I am catching that facing as I sew. Now I'm going to take the edges of my facing to the serger and finish those raw edges on both sides. Now for the top back opening of the skirt, we're going to press those edges to the wrong side at 2 different widths. For the left back opening, you're going to press that edge to the wrong side by 5/8 inch. For the right back opening, you're going to press that raw edge to the wrong side by 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to take my zipper. I'm going to place the right side of the zipper tape underneath that right back opening so that the fold of that right back opening that we just pressed in place is sitting right up against those zipper teeth. And we want the top stop of the zipper to be 3/8 of an inch away from the top edge of the skirt and pin in place all along that right side. And you can take that top zipper tape and fold it back right in between the outside of the skirt and the 1/2 inch portion that we pressed to the inside. And pin that in place. Now I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and using my zipper foot, I'm going to sew close to that folded edge all the way from top to bottom. And now for the left side of the zipper tape, we're going to place it under the left side opening of the skirt, and that difference in those pressed edges will allow this side of the skirt to overlap the back opening on the right by 1/8 of an inch. Once you have that back opening lined up in place, you're going to pin through the left side of the skirt and also through the left side of the zipper, from the top of the zipper to the bottom. I'm also going to take the top zipper tape and fold it in between the main skirt and the folded back section, just as I did on the right side, and pin in place. Now that I have that left side of my zipper secured with pins, I'm going to open up my zipper. And from the inside of the skirt, I'm going to use my zipper foot to sew close to those zipper teeth from the top to the bottom of the zipper. Once I get to the bottom of the zipper on the left side, I'm going to pivot my stitching straight across so that it meets where my stitching ended on the right side. Back stitching to secure. So now here is my completed zipper. If you like, at the top edge of your zipper, you can add a hook and eye piece to ensure that these edges stay flush together. Now for the bottom hem of the skirt, you have a few options. You can take the raw edges to the ironing board and fold the raw edges to the wrong side by 3/8 of an inch, and then by an additional 3/4 of an inch, pin in place, and then edge stitch close to that folded edge all the way around. You could also serge the raw edges and fold the hem to the wrong side by 1.25 inches, and then use a needle and thread to do a blind stitch all the way around, catching the serged edge of your material and just bits of fiber of the outside material all the way around as you go, to create an invisible stitch all along the bottom edge. I'm going to be using my blind hem foot to create an invisible hem here. I'm going to fold up the raw edges all the way around by 3/8 of an inch. Then once that 3/8 of an inch is pressed, I'm going to fold it once more by an additional 3/4 of an inch all the way around. Now that I have both of those pressed creases in place, I'm going to fold that full hem allowance to the right side so that the new fold just covers the raw edges of that 3/8 inch pressed crease. Pin in place. Continue all the way around. Now using my blind hem foot, I'm going to sew this hem in place. The blind hem stitch will create a series of stitches on the outer fold, followed by one single stitch on the inner fold, continuing that pattern all the way around. And now here's what my hem looks like on the inside of the garment, with those series of stitches visible on the inside, and then on the outside of the garment, those single stitches are barely visible. Now for the back center bottom slit, I've gone ahead and pressed those slit edges to the wrong side by 5/8 of an inch on both sides. Now I'm going to roll the hem of the slit on both sides, tucking that serged edge to the crease, and then on the crease, doing the same on both sides and pinning in place. Now I'll take it to my sewing machine and edge stitch along that inner fold, pivoting across at the top of the slit opening and then continuing my edge stitching all the way down to the bottom of the dress. Give everything a nice final press and your skirt is complete. Thank you for watching this sew along. Check out the rest of my video library for more great sewing inspiration, and I'll see you in the next video.